Welcome to another episode of Business by the Numbers. I'm your host, Demarest, CPA with Parmelis & Associates. So really excited episode this week. We have a first on Business by the Numbers, and that is a returning guest. So Chris Lawson from Technician Find joins us today to talk about all different things. But one of the main topics that we started on is, can you afford to recruit someone? Or in a lot of cases, can you afford not to recruit? Where the conversation went was really awesome. As always, I learned a ton with Chris, and I hope that you do as well. Shop owners, are you struggling to find and retain top-tier talent for your automotive shop? Introducing Promotive, on the web at gopromotive.com. With over 40 years of combined industry and recruiting experience, we're the ultimate staffing solution. We go beyond traditional agencies. Our team provides dedicated recruiters and account managers advising on processes, compensation, and benefits. We focus on placing technicians and service advisors with shops that offer the best culture, training, and long-term growth opportunities. Trust our experience to match the right talent to your shop. We carefully select shops that value employee excellence and provide an environment for success. Our dedicated team leads the entire process, leveraging our industry knowledge and expertise. Partner with Promotive and experience their advantage to help you build a high-performing team that drives your shop's growth. Visit gopromotive.com today and let us help find and keep the best talent in the industry. Before we get into that, I just want to stop and say thank you to you and the rest of the dedicated listeners. Remember, if you want your question answered on here or just have a question for me, shoot me an email at podcast@parmelis.com. Don't forget my new book, Beyond the Bays, a financial playbook for shop owners, is available now on Amazon for Kindle and download. Want to talk to us about accounting and tax services for your repair shop? Text us at 301-307-5413. I wanted to welcome Chris Lawson on here, and I didn't say this before we started talking, Chris, but very special because Chris is our first returning guest to the podcast. So I don't have a ton of guests on here because I want someone that I find interesting and has something to share. So what better compliment, Chris, that you are the only one to come on here twice. So appreciate you coming on here.
I'm honored. Thank you, Hunt. I appreciate it.
So Chris reached out with an awesome idea. The whole idea of what Chris does is Chris helps people find new technicians to recruit people, I guess advisors, a number of other different roles here. But one of the pushback that comes up, and I was telling him, I hear this a lot from shops before, is, hey, I can't afford to do that. We don't dabble in recruiting or advertising or any of this stuff, but I hear this a lot when I talk to shops. Well, hey, sales are down. Why aren't we doing any advertising? Well, hon, I can't afford to advertise. So I wanted Chris to come on here, right? A lot of you guys get this idea of advertising. We're like, well, that's crazy, hon. If you need more sales, you need to advertise no matter how much money you have. For some reason, a lot of you guys don't look at recruiting like that. So, Chris, why don't you talk about a little bit of that, of why people can't afford to not recruit if you really need the top people in your shop?
What really gave me this idea for this episode was reading your book. By the way, great job on that book, Beyond the Bays. Quick read, too. I read it on the plane, half on the way out, half on the way back, and just got a bunch of gold nuggets. So
appreciate it.
It's really great. And, I think that the interesting thing about it is that every shop owner knows what they pay for rent. And almost none of them know what they pay for empty bays, which is really interesting. And they look at recruiting as an expense. And I've had shop owners, dozens of them, tell me, you know what, every time I have an empty bay, it costs me $2,000 a day. But it's funny when we start talking about, okay, well, this is what it costs to do recruiting, this is what we have to do and pay in ads, these are all the things that we need to do, and it all of a sudden it becomes this big expense. And then it's like, well, what are you missing if you're not doing this? And what do you have in place so that if that tech comes into you on Friday afternoon and says, hey, I'm not coming back on Monday, are you going to be scrambling all weekend? I mean, what are you going to do to have that in place so that you're not scrambling?
Absolutely. And what of the number you threw out there, and when you email me back and forth, like you asked of like, hey, do you know what this costs or how to come up with this? So we measure all of our clients' average monthly sales. We even do one by the bay. So for last year, I'm going to round here, but it was around $29,500 was the average sale per bay. Most of our shops are running around 50% gross profit, which means that the gross profit dollars out of your pocket for not having that bay open for most shops is around $15,000 a month. You keep it open for 12 bays, or you keep that bay open for an entire year, it's going to cost you around $175,000. Not in sales. That's literally out of your pocket. I don't know how much you charge, Chris, but we're not even close. Why do you think that some people look at this different? Why do you think people look at a cost different than opportunity cost?
That's a great question. I've had a lot of conversations about this, and it's always looked at as kind of a vendor expense. So it's oh gosh, and that's how they're making the comparison, is saying, well, I pay this for my website, I pay this for my Google ads, I pay this, and then they're thinking, okay, well, you're another vendor, Chris. You should be competitive with what we're doing on this side. And it's a pretty detailed conversation, because when you're recruiting, what you're actually doing is you're not just throwing ads out there. That's the misconception. And you can tell that that's the misconception, because if you go to Indeed and you looked at automotive technician in my city and you look at all the jobs, they look exactly the same. Why do they look exactly the same? Because a GM or an owner
ChatGPT-written
went
all of them.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, now that's it. And the funny thing about it, and we can go down that rabbit hole too. It's interesting because if you compare a ChatGPT-written ad with, for example, an ad that we write, they look completely different. Because what ChatGPT does is they go out and they look at Indeed and they copy everything that's on Indeed, and then they write an ad that looks exactly like that. So that's really what you're looking at. You have to have the ads in place, because one of the things that everybody understands intuitively, if you've been in this industry, is if a technician is good, they want to work, and they've got and they have the opportunity to work, they're working. So if you want to find them, you're not going to find them on a job board necessarily. What you're going to do is you're going to get in front of them where they hang out. That's not where they would be looking for a job. If you want to attract them in that environment, you have to have a differently structured ad. You can't have an ad that's for somebody that's looking for a job, because you're going to say different things in those ads. You're going to structure them in a different way. Ads that are for somebody that's already working and has to take a risk to leave where they are and reach out to you and start a conversation, that's a big risk. The ads have to be structured in a different way. So it's a completely different conversation than a normal one that you would have.
I really like that idea, and I'm going to get back to that, because when you're saying it, it makes perfect sense, right? Hey, someone that is trying to say, hey, we got an opening, a really cool opportunity for something, is probably a lot different sales pitch to someone of hey, I get it. You've been there for 20 years. It's all that you ever know. But those, voices in the back of your head, there is something better, right? So love that idea, AI and all of that. Going back to the empty bays, though, do you think that this is a matter of people know that the cost that they're going to pay you is coming out of their bank account, but the opportunity cost of the sales that they're missing? When you find that you're actually having this conversation when you're talking to someone else, are most people shocked to hear that it's costing that much in bays, or they know that it's costing that much, but they still can't put, kind of the correlation of, well, hey, if I know it's costing me this much money, it's also a very silly argument to go back to Chris with a value proposition as well.
That's a great point. And I'll tell you this. Here's what I say, because this frames it. The way that I frame it is, you'd never if you had a broken lift, you wouldn't let it sit broken for 6 months because you can't afford to fix it, right?
Yeah.
So effectively, this is the same thing. You've got a lift, you got the bay. They're not operable. You're not generating any income from them.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll sit down with the shop owner and I'll say, how long have you been looking? And they'll tell me a year, 18 months.
Yeah.
What is the cost of that? So we have to have that conversation. Once I go through the numbers and I have that conversation, they get it. But there's just that vendor mentality. It's oh gosh, you're a vendor, and it's all my other vendors are charging me this and charging me that.
Yeah.
So,
but I don't think they're having that same conversation with advertisers. I also think that as far as the vendor space for this industry, right, there hasn't been a whole lot of recruiters. It wasn't something that was a customary line item in the past. You go to other industries, right, it's almost the only way to hire people, right? There's some industries, my space to a certain level is kind of getting to this, where it's hey, if you want to hire a top level CPA, well, whatever you're paying the first year, factor in another 20% to a recruiter. If you try to go find someone, can you, if you have really good connections? Sure. But the recruiters have came into the market and completely shifted the landscape. Are you seeing that right now for the automotive industry? Like, do you think that if I'm an owner of a shop right now, it's a harder landscape for me to compete and get clicks and get eyes on my ad than it was, say, 5-6 years ago?
I wouldn't. Well, it is in that the market is more crowded, but I would compare it to what a lot of the shop owners told me. See, I got into this side of the industry. I've been in digital marketing since 2012, but I got into this side of it, digital marketing for automotive repair shops, in 2017. And a lot of the shop owners that I talked to, they actually tell me, well, you know what we used to do is we used to just put an ad out on Craigslist on Friday. And by Monday, we'd have 7 applications, and we'd hire somebody by Wednesday. So it's not even that it's, the digital side of it has changed. It's the entire scope. So you used to be able to do this yourself. If you're a shop owner, you just go, you write up the ad, or you grab an ad from your coach, or you crib your competitor down the street. You crib their ad and you change all the details, and then you just post it. You post it on Craigslist, you post it on Indeed, and then you're good to go. You're going to get what you need to get. The problem now is what I just talked about before. The problem is you need to find people that are already working, and you need to meet them where they are. And the big problem with that is it requires a different set of skills. It requires direct response copywriting, so that you can join the world that a technician is in and meet them where they are and invite them into a story where they're the hero and you're the guide. It's the Donald Miller story brand style. You need to be able to get those ads in front of them. That requires a specific expertise of how to run ads in a digital space. And you also need to have a back end that can follow up and make sure that you are not getting ghosted. So it's a whole different set of skills. And hey, let's face it, you figured out how to fix vehicles. That's, it's not easy, especially now with the vehicles that are coming out. If you really wanted to dedicate 100 or 200 or 300 hours to figuring out this whole space, you could probably do that. You could hire a team. But it does take a team to get all these things in place and to generate the leads like you need to have them.
That probably makes perfect sense, because 10 years ago on Craigslist, you were going against other people trying to poach these technicians that do side work, flip cars, right? So you had a person, they had a person, it was a fair fight. But like you said, hey, if you're going out there with just one guy, right, or you got your advisor doing this part-time, you guys are competing against teams in your neighborhood trying to get that top technician, right? And think about who they're all really going for, right? They want the person that was at their last job for more than 10 years, master level, right? These guys don't exist, and when they do you think that you want to be competing yourself or with an agency? Yeah, it's crazy to think about. Now, you and I have talked about this a lot, and this is advertising, but like when you're trying to advertise to someone, you're creating an avatar, right? An agent of like, this is what that prototypical person looks like. So let's say that I'm a shop owner, and I say, Chris, I've been fortunate, right? I've been running my shop for, the past 30 years. I haven't had to really recruit anyone for the last 10 years. So if the last time I recruited a technician in 2016 and I'm trying to do it again 10 years later, what would be the biggest thing that you would say to me of like, hey, this might have worked in the past, or people are looking for that. They don't really care about that anymore. Like, what has changed? Obviously, the ads have changed, the medium has changed, but I also think probably the person that we're looking for has changed a little bit as well.
Yeah, wow, that's a lot to unpack there, but very, very great points. Let me take it point by point. First of all, what I would say is the 3 things that I've noticed over the years that really are where a shop gets stuck in hiring is, the first one is they aren't getting any applications at all. You're dead in the water when you're not getting any applications at all, because you can't optimize zero. That's the problem. So you have to start getting those applications coming in, and that's really writing a good ad, a very detailed ad. That's where the customer avatar comes in. Absolutely, we have a very detailed avatar that I've based on 7+ years, almost 8 years of speaking with technicians, hundreds of technicians, all my conversations, fears, frustrations, hopes, aspirations. We've got it all into ChatGPT, and we do our marketing is informed based on that, and that helps you to get a really solid ad that does speak directly to a technician. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, once you get a flow of applications, you really need to be able to filter them out. So I'll tell you, after generating, I haven't looked at the numbers from this past year, but I did a presentation at Apex back in 2024, and I did a detailed, exhaustive study of all of our numbers. And at that time, we had generated over 80,000 applications for our positions. And what I found is that on average, when you're looking at technicians, then 1 in 4 is going to be qualified. So one of them is going to be the backyard mechanic who held the flashlight for his dad and can fix anything you put in front of him, right? Never worked in a professional automotive repair business. Another one is going to be the Domino's delivery driver that saw the salary and decided to throw their hat in the ring. How tough can it be to turn a wrench?
They're applying for my tax positions as well, too, right? Some of these, I'm like, I mean, kudos to you, but like you didn't check any of the 8 requirements, but you still sent it all in there. So.
But Indeed has this really fancy AI, and they don't let applications like that through, right, Hunt?
I'd have to speak to their AI about my feedback on that one, I guess.
I've got a whole story about that too. If we have time, I'll tell you about that. But and then you've got another guy who may be a guy or gal. They may be ambitious, but they were stuck busting tires at a dealer for the last 2 years, and they don't really have the skill that you need. And then that last person is the technician that has the qualifications. So it's 1 in 4, and you need to generate enough eyeballs on your ad in order to get to that point. And nobody I talk to is looking at the metrics in that way. It takes a lot of horsepower in order to get those gold nuggets, those really good applicants. So that's the second part. So part 1 is a quick reminder. Part 1 is you have to start getting the application flow. Number 2 is you have to weed that application flow down. Once you start getting applications, now you can start tightening the scope so that you're getting those good, solid applicants. And the third part speaks directly to your question is, if you're rusty in the hiring process, how do you get support? You nailed it. Some of these shops we work with haven't hired in 10 years. So they don't have SOPs that are really handy, and they're not, and even if they do have SOPs, they're rusty. So how do you prevent ghosting? How often do you follow up? What do you say in interviews? What are interview questions? What do you say in that first phone conversation to develop rapport? How do all these things work? How do you structure a working interview? How do you make an offer? How do you know that if your offer is solid or not? In terms of salary and benefits, how do you know if it's competitive? These are all things that we help with on the back end. And I created a school community for independent automotive repair shop owners and general managers. It's all free, and I've dumped all of this information, all the best practices into it, because we want the shops we work with to hire faster, and that helps them because now they've got this stuff because because again, they're rusty. Most shops don't hire all the time.
Every month, auto repair shops can lose over $20,000 in uncredited parts, cores, and lost profits. WickedFile's AI-powered software is a game changer. It helped one shop owner recover over $10,000 in missed credits, and others have recovered tens of thousands more. WickedFile puts cash back into your business and hours back into your day. Stop leaving money on the table. Visit wickedfile.com to learn more and get started today.
No, I mean, that makes perfect sense, right? Like, hey, when you were doing this on Craigslist, if you had the guy to reach out, he's already qualified, right? I mean, you could even go into the technology of it's like, hey, in 2000, maybe not 16, but 2006, you could be a backyard mechanic at a lot of these shops, still turn wrenches. Today, no, right? Like, you're lost without a paddle on it. One of the parts that you brought up there was kind of, hey, you're not very polished on this, right? Like, beyond just the ad, like let's say that you can get the hook, right? People know about you, right? If you've kept people that long, you'll probably just get people just on your name of, man, they're hiring, right? That's always a cool shop. They work on cool stuff. How much of these guys realize, or how much do you see this of a technician interviewing the shop versus the shop interviewing a technician? Like, are most of these technicians that going into shops weighing multiple offers where, a shop has to be mindful of that? Because like when I hear about this a lot for shop owners, they always say, I'm bringing this kid in, going to figure out what he's got going on. And I'm thinking to myself, with as tight of the labor market is, they're saying the same thing to you, right? To their friends of like, hey, I want to get hired at every single shop in Houston, right? So I'm going to make my pick and then I'm going to go there. And yeah, I'm doing a working interview, but these shops don't realize which direction this is going. Do you see that?
Absolutely. I've seen it. I mean, here's a level. I'll give you a couple of examples. I talked to one tech, and a tech told me, you know what? I send my wife in before I even return a phone call. I send her in. I want to see how they treat women in the shop. They always drive by. You know, one of the reasons why we use a store frontage image in our ads is because they drive by and they take a look at, you know, the shop. So we want visual recognition. I can tell you that they do lots of homework. So one of the things that I always say is the top 20% of shops we work with are able to hire within 2 weeks. Those are the rock star shops. They're really rock stars. And somebody said to me the other day, hey, Chris, what does that mean to be a rock star shop? And I just a couple days ago got an email from a shop that was a rock star shop, is a rock star shop. And here's what they did. So when this individual applied, this person narrowed down her search. So she's an A tech, she's moving into this area, narrowed down her search to 6 shops. Yeah. She didn't start with 6 that she was looking at. She narrowed it down to 6. And then she talked to the tool guy in the area. And the tool guy in the area didn't even call on this particular shop that's our client's shop. But he knew the master tech at the shop. And he told her, hey, out of the 6 that you're looking at, you need to really focus on this one because these guys are doing a good job. So reputation. Having a reputation as being a really solid business is so important, and it helps a lot of things out. Yeah. The next thing that this shop did is they invited her in, and they sent her to lunch with the master tech. So just one-on-one, hanging out. He made a huge impression on her, and that was a big part of it. So getting them involved, building rapport, so important. Then this owner called her current boss and was talking with her current boss and found out that she's really big on training. So he sent a follow-up email and said, hey, you know what? We're doing ATI. We're going to be at Vision. We're doing all these other things. We're WorldPack. We do WorldPack training. And whatever you need, we'll get you set up so that you've got the training that you need. So he made another touch, and it showed that he had reached out and he was interested in finding out what was important to her, and then offered her a lot of options in order to avail herself of if she decides to come on board with them. So long story short, she ended up signing an offer with them. But look at all of the touch points that happened all the way through, and look at how much due diligence she was doing on her end. That's pretty standard now.
Really?
It's a lot of due diligence.
That was my next question, is like, what you just told me, is that common, or you're like, this girl went over the top? Are you saying that that's probably like the middle percentile? There's people that even go way more than this?
No, I wouldn't say so much more, but a lot of it is done online now. Yeah. So I'll tell you, I'll give you an example. So we had a shop we worked with a while back, and we didn't know this when they signed on, but they had a horrible reputation. I mean, there's just no way I can say this, but it's funny because
old school bad reputation, just bad service, bad prices, missing deadlines.
I mean, everything. I mean, it's not only was it bad from a standpoint of employees, so negative reviews on Glassdoor, but it was from customers. 1.7 stars on Yelp. Never responded to any of the negative reviews, all these kind of things.
That's true. You could have a shop where it's like, yeah, the customers hate us, but everyone loves working here, right? It's a really fun environment. Like, they pay us really well. Like, we don't work that hard, so the customers hate us, but no one there was happy. Back of house, front of house, yeah, okay.
Nobody. So you can tell that if you're looking at the numbers. So, I mean, and again, this isn't something that most shops do, is they're not looking at numbers. So we are looking at numbers on the front end. Okay, how many people have seen the ads? How many people have clicked on the ads? What's the click-through rate? Then when they get to the application page, is there a drop-off? That's a sure sign. When they get to the application page and they're not hitting their KPIs, because we've got our KPIs just like all of you that are running your shops, that's a clear sign that something's going wrong. Either it's a huge mismatch in salary, so your salary and benefits are way below competitive, or you've got a negative reputation. So here's the punchline, Hunt. The punchline is, if a technician isn't going to do as much due diligence as this tech that I just told you about in the story, a bare minimum that they're going to do is they're going to go online into the forums and they're going to ask everybody else, hey, I'm looking at this shop. And if you've got a negative review, you wouldn't even know it, because these are private technician forums and they're spreading like wildfire. It's like, hey, don't touch that shop. They're shady. They do this, they do that.
And they talk about a lot different things than what we talk about Google, but it's things that technicians actually care about, right? Like, hey, are we getting paid book time? Are we getting paid 80% of book time, right? Are they really making you work on Saturdays? Like, hey, they're trying to do their due diligence because they're about to haul a 3,000-pound box somewhere and probably not move anytime soon. So
that's right. That's right. And, the other part about this is, we've got a process for once an offer is accepted, what you do between that 2 weeks. So if you're going to give 2 weeks, because a lot of people get in their ear. Their spouse is going to get in their ear. Their friends are going to get in their ear. Their current shop is going to get in their ear. Their manager, all these people are going to get in their ear. So you need to make sure that you have that communication with them all the way through, because I've seen this happen a lot. The offer's made, the offer's accepted, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, they make nicey nice, and it's like, oh, it's not so bad here.
Because they already got them, right? Like the person's like, hey, they're hired, right? Chris just accepted my job. He's going to come start in 2 weeks. And I hear this all the time, Chris. Like, so excited. This guy's coming from X, Y, and Z. And I talked to him a month later. What happened? It never showed up, right? But I guarantee you that, like you said, like they're competing. They're in that 6 shops. They're putting on their game face, right? They got it. Oh, yeah, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. All right, we won, right? So they completely take their foot off the gas. Yep. The other people, the other 5 shops we were talking about that you said no to, are still going to call them for the next 2 weeks. Their current boss is still going to call them for the next 2 weeks, right? And yeah, I see this so much, and it goes back to what you said. Like, I don't think people realize that this is a number game, right? If you haven't recruited that much, you might have never had anyone ghost you into 2 weeks. If you do it enough, there is a percentage to measure there, right? And there's a percentage to measure probably dependent on what your reputation is, how good that feedback is. But like, when you start talking about this, yeah, if I want one technician, right, and I'm not good at following up, I'm not that good at writing ads, right, I don't have that best shop, can you do it yourself? Sure, but by the way, I'm looking at it, I might need 1,000 applicants if I don't handle my applicants well, whereas if you really handle these, really screen these, you might need like a fraction of that if you actually take care of them.
It's so true. It's so true. We can always tell, because there's sometimes, it's so funny because we look at the numbers from our end, and you know what? Sometimes the numbers just don't look that good. And, we do everything we can. We pull all the levers, but sometimes the numbers don't look that good. And several times I've been with my team and my staff in team meetings, and we're going, oh my gosh, what can we do? We've done everything we know, and we've only generated, 10 applications, gosh, this is horrible. And then the next week, Christy on my team will reach out and they'll say, oh, you know what? We made an offer. It was accepted. This is great. We had, we didn't get a ton of applications, but we got the ones we needed and we were able to make it work. And that's the difference between a shop that really understands what they need and partners with us. And I've started saying that a lot is, sometimes what'll happen is a shop will sign up with us and then they'll fold their arms and sit back in their chair and say, okay, Chris, send me a unicorn, and it doesn't work that way. It has to be a partnership. We can do a lot on our end, but once that application gets submitted, it's in your court. The ball's in your court. You have to know how to sell the dream. You have to know how to have these conversations and keep things moving. And one other thing I wanted to say about that, Hunt, is in that interim period between when the offer is accepted and the toolbox drops, you have to be on that communication at least every 48 hours. And if they stop communicating with you, you got to go to DEFCON 1. You got to pull out all the stops, and you got to do whatever you can to get that communication going again, because that means somebody got in their ear and they're not going to show up on that Monday morning 2 weeks later.
Yeah. I mean, and it goes back to reputation, right? Like if this, prospective employee has a colleague, friend in this industry who really values, and they hear one bad thing in that 2 week period, that could be enough for them to be like, you know what, I'm not doing it, right?
Absolutely.
But again, like you go silent on it, you're able to reach out and be like, hey, let me clear the air and tell your side of the story. Fine, you might be able to save them, but those are the people that just never show up and people don't know about it. So I love this.
And you don't know.
Go for it. Yeah, true. Yeah. Right? Like you're just like, hey, did something happen? Did a boss go? And you're just back to square one.
Exactly.
Very
exactly.
Cool. I got a couple rapid fire ones here, Chris. This has been awesome. I mean, this is like, what I wanted is like, obviously to stress the importance of working with a professional, right? If like, hey, you can do this yourself, but everyone else is probably using other people. But also, like, this is something that is ever changing, right? Like, what you were doing 5 years ago might have worked okay, and it might not be working now. It would be nice to hear of like, hey, it's probably not working for other people. So, got a couple questions. Some of this is really just probably like I'm framing this as a shop owner listening to this of like, hey, what's going to set me apart and stuff like that. So I'll just go down a couple of these because I get asked a lot. So I'm going to ask the expert. So what percentage of people are you seeing that are trying to recruit by alternative schedules, right? Like, hey, get your Saturdays back, or hey, get your Fridays back. How much of like the ads that you're writing are people using like a different work week to attract technicians?
We, since we only work with independent shops, we always, that's a feature that we use to sell against dealers all day long. So most of the shops we work with are 5 days, 5 day weeks.
Most of them are 5 days.
The ones that offer 410s, that's a fantastic benefit. And
really?
Not all of them, probably 20-30% of the shops we work with offer 410s. Not very many shops do, but the ones that do have said it's made all the difference in the world. Everybody's more happy, it's easier to recruit, and it's just better all the way around. But it's a steep learning curve to figure out how to squeeze that much production into those days, though.
So that you hit the nail on the head there. So like a lot of my clients that have done the 410s, it's really only been for like, current employees and attracting new talent because it sets you apart. So you're saying if you have a shop that is 5 days a week and 410s, it is making that big of a difference for some people if they're looking at those two?
Yeah, it makes a big difference.
Very cool. What percentage of this, of the shops that you're working with are offering health insurance, or which one of them are saying we're just going to pay for health insurance? Or I guess you can loop any sort of benefits in that. Like, hey, are most people doing a full benefits package where they're not only offering health insurance but paying for a lot of this? Is most people just on flat rate, no other benefits, or what? In
terms of health benefits, not very many shops we work with have full. And if they are full, it's usually for the employee, it's not for the family. There's a very small percentage that actually offer full benefits, vision and dental, and everything paid for the family. It just usually doesn't happen. That being said, most of our clients do offer some sort of health benefit, but it's usually about 50%, or maybe they'll cover the employee, but it's limited.
Are you, on the employer and the recruiting side, are you guys seeing that as a big determining factor for technicians, or as long as someone's willing to make sure that the dollars and cents work, they don't care as much? Usually,
as long as they make sure the dollars and cents work, they don't care as much. And the other part about this is a lot of this can be an individual negotiation too. So if one of the things I always say when we're on an onboarding, so we have a 90-minute onboarding with every new shop because we ask a ton of questions. I ask over 100 questions because we want to get somebody that's a good skill fit and a good culture fit. Sure. And in order to do that, you need to really dig deep. And one of the questions one of the things I tell them before we start is, if you feel comfortable having a conversation about this, let's say yes, and let's put it in the ad. So, for example, if you feel comfortable sitting across the table from a tech or talking to a tech on the phone and saying, hey, we can work out a relocation package. Yeah. Let's say yes. If you had a tech that said, you know what, it's a deal breaker, I've got a sick kid or something like this, and I really need the health insurance, would you be willing to have that conversation? If the answer is yes, let's say yes. So everything is like a continuum. And when I say health coverage, they go, oh my God, $5,000 a month per employee or something like that. It's a continuum. We have shops that just say, hey, we're going to give you $200 towards whatever plan you want, or we're going to do this, and it's a continuum. And relocation is the same way. Whenever I mention relocation, if we need to expand the search radius, they go, oh my God, I'm going to have to back up a Mayflower truck and move everything. No. We've had shops that have a double wide, 200 yards from the shop, and they let the tech stay there for 6 months, rent free until they got on their feet. We've had folks that just moved the toolbox. We've got folks that just gave them $500 to rent a truck. So it's usually an individual negotiation, And with that having been said, I'm going to say check with your state, because different states have different laws about how they do this and the teeth that you put into these things. So I'm not an attorney.
Yeah, but you're right? Like, put your best foot forward, right? Because a lot of people, you're like, we don't offer, health insurance, we don't offer relocation package, which is a true statement. But you're like, hey, if that A technician, if he wanted $1,000 for relocation, of course you're going to pay it. So,
of course,
you're not agreeing to pay for the entire cost of relocating his entire extended family from the West Coast, right? I love that idea. You're open for a conversation. Cool.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned before, I think we went into some of the different details of it, but we have to talk about AI, right? Because 5 years ago, everyone, you included, was writing these ads. Now today, even yourself is not writing these, probably unassisted. So if I'm a shop owner, should I be using ChatGPT to write my ad completely? Should I be using it none whatsoever? Or can it be used sparingly to set myself apart?
Oh, another great question. Yeah. So to use AI or to not to use AI, that's the question. I will tell you, I got really lucky. I have somebody that writes our ads, does it all manually.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
This is an individual, unique individual. He's a tech. He was a tech for 20 years. Then during COVID, he's up in Canada. And he was an award-winning technician. And during COVID, it hit them worse than it hit us. Shops here were essential businesses. It wasn't that way up there. And he's like, I got to make money. So he started doing copywriting. And he's a fantastic copywriter, and he writes all these ads from scratch. So that's, what we do. And that's kind of how we make a difference. But I would tell you, I've written lots of ads myself using AI. And here's the thing. The thing is, and what I usually do is I'll do some tweaks or something like that, and I've just played around with it. But I do ads for basically social media ads and things like that. Here's the problem. The problem is AI doesn't know, if it doesn't have guardrails on it, it can go anywhere. And the problem is, if you just go out there and say, hey, I own an automotive repair shop in Denver, Colorado, and I need an ad for a technician, it's going to say, okay, where are ads for technicians? Oh, they're on Indeed. Let's go to Indeed. Let's look at all these ads. Let's make an ad that's just exactly like this. Yeah. Now, what have you done? You haven't set yourself apart.
Yeah.
If you go in and you say, okay, here is our avatar. This is what they're interested in. This is what a good ad looks like. This is what a really compelling, professionally written ad looks like. And then you train the GPT and give it guardrails. Now the response that you get back is going to be a good, solid response. Because what a lot of people don't realize about this is it's just math. Yeah. All a large language model is doing is it's guessing by probability what the next word is going to be in the sentence.
Based on what's already been created.
Yeah. So if you give it the entire history of mankind and it's got to guess what's already being created, it's like saying Jack and Jill went up the...
Yeah.
AI is going to say, oh, it's hill, because we've seen this data and we know that, throughout the language patterns, this is where it's going to go next. But if you give it the guardrails and you say, this is the knowledge that I want you to draw from, you get a much better result. So you have to put the guardrails on it.
Yeah, someone explained it to me. It's kind of like autocorrect, right? Like, hey, it is trying to learn of what you're doing, but if left unchecked, autocheck is trying to save you and it's going to make you look like the world's biggest idiot, right? And
that's right.
I've seen these, like, no offense to my clients that are listening right now, I can always tell when you send me an email by ChatGPT. And I think it's probably the same issue they have with their ads. It's like, you don't understand what the hell you just wrote, right? The people reading it do, right? So like when you send that to an accountant, it's a really good question, but I know that you didn't ask it because it sounds like something that you didn't ask. And I would have to imagine if I'm a technician reading it, I can tell if that's a shop owner that's been in my shoes that understands what I'm doing, or if that is ChatGPT with the bullets and the italics and all that stuff.
That is so true. That's so true. We had somebody that did that to us. They ran our campaigns through it and then sent it back. And it was funny because it was information for a typical digital marketing campaign that would have been relevant.
Yeah.
But for a recruiting campaign, it wasn't relevant.
Yeah.
And it's a perfect example of you've got to put the guardrails on it.
Yeah.
You've got to know how to write these prompts.
Well, it doesn't get the subtleties, right? Because all of the stuff that we're talking is marketing 101, right? You know, conversion rates, all of this stuff, you know, showing up to meetings, booking the meetings, right? And so, like, if you're going to go to that, that's obviously the model that ChatGPT is going to go to. But we know it's like, hey, some of this stuff is marketing, is recruiting, right? It's the same thing, getting people to do actions. But then at some point, they drastically differ because now we have humans, right? Now we have someone come into an interview. Now we have them leaving a commitment that they've had before. Yeah, I mean, just like anything on it, you look it on the surface, and maybe it was, right? Like you said, 20 years ago, everyone could just post an ad on Craigslist for free, and they probably got a decent pool of qualified technicians. Can you do the same thing right now? Yes, right? But Craigslist looked different. It's maybe not free, but I don't think it's maybe as bad of a landscape as what people make it out. Chris, final question for you is, we have seen a ton of changing over the market, right? Like we talked about 20 years ago. As far as what a technician does and what a technician makes, I think it's honestly very similar to what we've seen 10 years ago, right? Shops have drastically changed, but the average wage and benefits and stuff like that of technicians have stayed relatively similar. What do you see in 10 years? Do you see this being a job where everyone is consistently kind of, you know, six figures or whatever adjusted six figures would be in 10 years? Do you think that this is going to be a, you know, still pretty blue collar industry, or what?
I would say, if history is any guide, and, it is our only guide, I think wages will continue to go up until you start pulling people into the market that fill that gap. I think they're going to keep going up from here, and they're going to go up for a while. The thing is, and I tell this to all of my clients, all the shop owners, all of the technicians I talk to, I say, you know what? ChatGPT can't turn a wrench yet.
Yeah.
So, you're safe right now. But I think things are going to keep continuing to go up. I think all the trades are going to continue to go up.
Yeah.
And it's because of that's exactly why. Yeah. And technology keeps expanding as well. And I think that there are going to be, there's some people doing some great work in this space. People like Mike Rowe and lots of people in the aftermarket, and they're doing great work in promoting promoting Votech schools and making this acceptable to go in there. I think it's going to take some time, but I think it's going to continue to go up and climb, probably at least for the next 5 years. And then we're going to hit a saturation point. The stigma is going to be taken away, and then it's going to be cool. Hey, you like to work with your hands? Awesome. Come work with your hands over here. Here's an honest career, and you can make good money and make your parents proud.
I agree with you. And I think that the industry has already changed. The public perception has not, right? And that's what's going to catch up to this. But you're right. And that's what I kind of figured you were going to say is, like, if there is a finite amount of people, if you guys feel like it's hard to attract people, you're probably not paying enough, right? Like, humans are very simple creatures. Do you think that there would ever be a trash man if they didn't pay them, right? No. Like, they see what that line is, right? Trash people don't show up for 60 grand a year, 80 grand kind of. 100 grand in a lot of places is what a sanitation worker is getting, right? So, if you want to go out there and you want to pay a technician $30 an hour, it's 2026, right? There is a lot of stuff that you can do for $30 an hour, which is probably easier. Your last example was super funny, right? Like, yours and my careers arguably could already be replaced by AI and ChatGPT today. ChatGPT can't replace a head gasket. So it's kind of funny, right? Because it's like, look at what I do with taxes and all this stuff. Like, there is some concern there. We are not even close to replacing the guy. So yeah, I think it's an awesome industry. I think it's done a lot for both of us. And yeah, I'm excited because not only do I think that this is a good future for, the shop owners and the clients that you and I work with, but really everyone from top to bottom. I think that, hopefully we got good times and we didn't just jinx it here, Chris. So
yes.
Any final words for someone out there? Any final words for someone that maybe thinks, you know what, I don't need to start recruiting now. I don't need to hire anyone till this summer, or, just someone of like trying to get 2026 and trying to get their team in place this year.
Always start early. I haven't said this publicly, so I'll say it publicly here for the first time. One of the things that I've been asked over the last 8 years, nearly 8 years now, is, hey, Chris, we're fully staffed up, we're manned up, we're good, but I want to build my bench. Yep. Can you help us build our bench? And I say, up to this point, I said, we can run the regular service for you, but it's the regular service.
Yeah.
And you have to make sure that you are being honest about it. You don't tell people that you're hiring and you're not hiring. You have to be honest about it. But I didn't have any in between. Well, we're going to start a bench builder club, and we're going to help shops that are fully staffed, but they want some, insurance for empty bay insurance, and keep that and build their bench and keep in communication with their benches. So if anybody's interested in that, I would be happy to get you more information, and you can just contact us at service@technicianfind.com, and we can get you the info.
Awesome. And yeah, all Chris's contact information, I will put it all down here in the show notes. So if you want to talk to him, got some questions about how he works, how he operates, how we can find top talent for your team, shoot him a message. Also talked about some free resources and stuff like that. Well, we will link all of that stuff for you guys. But Chris, I appreciate it. As always, I've learned a ton. I think anyone listening to this has learned a ton. I mean, I think my big takeaway is some of this stuff I hadn't heard before, right? And I'm I'd like to think pretty in tuned. I know shop owners are listening to this and saying, what the heck does building a bench mean, right? Wait, how many, applications are they getting? Guys, this is what other shops are doing, right? Like other shops in your town are building a bench. Other shops in your town are actively trying to recruit your people. I get it. You might have never had to do it in the past. Things change. And if you don't, you might get left behind. So Chris, cannot thank you enough for coming back as my first return guest. So appreciate you having on here. Appreciate you educating our listeners.
Thank you so much, Hunt. It's been great. And, we may have to edit this in or edit it out, whatever you say, but I just thought of something I'd like to offer to your listeners.
Yeah, do it.
One of the things that we always do with our new shops that sign on is we run a comprehensive salary survey. So we show them all of the competing shops, the shop name, the benefits, their salary ranges, all of that.
Wow.
So you can see at a snapshot what you're competing against, and this will help you develop really strong offers. So if you are interested in that, please get in touch with us, and we'll run one for you.
Awesome. So I will also put that in the show notes here. We'll definitely put that in there. People ask me this all the time, and I say it is impossible for me to say unless I know shops in your area, but Chris is the man for that. So you want to know what your competitors are paying? Chris has that data. Seems like that would also be awesome information, maybe if you weren't even looking to hire someone, just to make sure that you're taking care of your team, right?
Absolutely. You want to make sure that you're competitive. And I always tell every shop we're working with that you should be having these conversations with your techs, because you know what? They're looking, and they know.
Yeah.
So,
and one day you find out, right?
That's right. You don't want to have them come to you. You want to go to them. Yeah.
Save them before you are chasing their flatbed out of the parking lot, trying to throw some more flat rate hours, whatever you were going to do. It's already too late at that point. Yeah.
Exactly.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Hunt.
So just like the first time Chris came on here, when he came back, it was just as good, if not better. I learned a ton. I hope that you not only learn some stuff, but learn some actionable items that will maybe help you recruit, run your business, take care of your team better or in a different way. As always, please share with friends. If you have any question, comments, or ideas for a future episode, shoot me an email at podcast@Parmelis. Thanks again for listening on the Automotive Repair Podcast Network. Don't forget to check out the new Automotive Repair Podcast Network app. You can also check out the podcast on the rest of your favorite podcast listening apps. So thanks again for joining on Business by the Numbers. Stay safe out there, and I'll talk to you all next week.